Hi, this is the Week 3 review for the Understanding Language MOOC, the fifth run of the Understanding Language MOOC from the University of Southampton and the British Council. I'm Josh, and it's my turn to do the review this week. So I'm going to highlight some of the conversations that I found most interesting, but obviously I'll miss a lot of good conversations. So I'd really like it if you would add in the comments on this step of week 3 links to your own favourites. I'll start with people's expectations. A lot of people were excited about the possibility of using technology or different technologies to help people learn a language and wanted to know about the most effective ways of using technology. But people like Inge were quick to highlight that technology is not a remedy for bad teaching. So I guess the question was really, how can we use different technologies within our teaching context to help engage learners in activities that are likely to lead to effective language learning? And I think other people pointed out, you can't look at technology as a panacea, the way to learn a language. So then we moved on to looking at online or face-to-face learning and the differences between online and face-to-face learning, or some of the differences. Edna focused on the immediacy of feedback. Now, we all know that feedback is important in learning, and I think Edna, probably because of the nature of this course, was thinking about, well, you post a comment and you wait and you wait, and maybe you get some feedback or maybe you don't. It's not immediate. And that related to something that Michael said about real-time pressure when you're in a face-to-face language learning situation or language using situation. You need to be able to interpret and respond quickly, and text-based online learning like this doesn't have that kind of pressure. And I think he was debating whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, giving learners more time to think about their responses, or do they need to be under pressure in order to do that? But of course that relates to a conversation that others had about whether or not online learning is real interaction. And I guess that depends on what you want to learn a language for. I mean, there's real interaction through writing on paper or online, etc. It doesn't all have to be real-time, synchronous, face-to-face spoken conversation. So we need to think about what we're learning, or what the learners are learning the language for, and how they want to use it, and where and when, and whether the medium or the means that we're using to practice and present language are the right ones, whether they correspond to the uses that people are going to want to make of language. Another good point from Rena was about human contact, and I think here that really is a challenge for online environments. How can you have real, genuine human contact through online environments? So I think really here she was referring to some interesting research about how a pat on the shoulder can encourage in classroom learning, seems to be a way of promoting interaction, learners more likely to ask a question or contribute. Can we have that kind of pat on the shoulder in online environments? And it relates to questions that we'll come to in a second later about whether we can use personality in online environments. People did highlight some of the advantages of online environments. Of course, being able to participate in a global community like this one, the flexibility of being able to study when you can, when you've got a spare moment, or anywhere, anytime, as they often say, if you have access to the internet. But also the difficulties of self-regulation and staying motivated, and that relates to a question that Alex had about dropout rates, the very high dropout rates, which also relates to how we can involve students as teachers and our role as e-moderators, if you like. Anyway, to get back to Alex's question, Alex asked about statistics on the course of how many people are active, etc., how many people complete the course. What I can tell you is that since the beginning of the course there have been 20,150 comments and about 1,687 on week 3 steps this week. So there are 3,762 active learners. Those are defined as people who've done something on the platform, clicked a button or something. That's about 51% of those that started the course that were active at the beginning of the course. There are 1,943 social learners this week. That's about 26% of those that started, and that means people who made a comment or replied. And there are 340 fully participating learners. That's about 4.6% of those that started, and those are people who have marked at least 50% of the steps as complete. So I'll return back to how do we engage students, how do we get these non-participating students to participate. Maybe this relates to a question that Rachel raised about online environments being challenging because they kind of neutralise the personality of students and teachers, and whether we can use our personalities to engage learners, to bring in, to participating, those that are lurking on the sidelines, those that are reading and looking and not actually making contributions or comments. Alexandra felt that lurking is not a very positive sounding term, and that was discussed on the Facebook clinic as well. Can we think of a more positive term for those that are on the periphery, that are engaging mentally and etc., but not showing signs through comments that they are participating? I thought that was an interesting thing to look at, which relates to questions about dropout rates and about learning from MOOCs. How do we detect the amount of learning that is going on? Anyway, to summarise and get back to the idea of technology and language learning, obviously there are a great variety of technologies, and there are various activities that you can engage in to learn a language. And the question for me is, well, can we use particular technologies in particular circumstances to promote and engage learners in activities that we have reason to believe will improve their language learning? I think that relates to an extent to Rumiana's point right at the beginning of the course. No pain, no gain. I don't necessarily think we need to go through pain to learn, but I certainly think and believe that effortful engagement in activities that expose us to the language and force us to use the language will be beneficial. And the role for technology for me is to help us to create opportunities for learners to engage in that kind of activity and entice them to do so. So thank you for getting this far, if you did get this far. Oh, and I'll finally end just by mentioning that there's a conference next year called the EuroCall Conference, which is going to be at Southampton, and I find that a really good place, a good conference to go to. It kind of combines practitioner-teacher perspectives very often with researcher perspectives and people interested in technology who can see some of the opportunities that computer-assisted language learning or technology-assisted language learning might offer. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the course. Bye.